Hey everyone, this is my 2006 Range Rover Sport in Vesuvius Red, which was a launch edition color. And they only made less than a couple hundred in this color. It's not very well documented. I'm gonna do a walk around, show all the features of this particular model. This will be going up on Cars and Bids here shortly. So I just wanted to make sure that I had a video just documenting everything from a potential buyer's point of view, and that way they'd have full confidence in purchasing it, because I would hope to have the same resource if I was in the middle of purchasing something like this as well. I required this around the winter of last year. It might have been the beginning of this year in January, from a gentleman out in Massachusetts. He was a doctor. He drove it for about a year and a half daily, and from the previous owner, he bought it as it looks now. He bought it with the wheels that were put on it, which basically were just a larger tire. There's spacers in the front just to make sure there's not any rubbing, and there's I believe it's Johnson rods to manipulate the factory air suspension computer to ride at a higher height that you can adjust. I bought this for the color. I bought this seeing this as a kid growing up, knowing that I always wanted one. Little did I know, when I started to look, I realized how difficult it was, and then I realized when I started to look and actually was ready to purchase, it became more difficult. So I had been looking for about a year before this just popped up randomly on Craigslist, thanks to Search Auto Tempest. And I would look every single day, just as a hobby, like every car guy. And this one popped up. I called the guy on FaceTime, did whatever I could do to make it a relatively easy transaction, made sure everything was legit, had him sign an agreement, send his license, and I wired in the money blindly and called a transporter. So it was the first time that I had done that, and it worked out very well for me. So we'll go over some of the flaws on the exterior. Overall, mechanically, this thing is, I would say, perfect. 100 and we'll look at the odometer in there. 150-ish thousand miles on this thing, and it rides amazingly. The only thing I had done to it was done some front end suspension work and alignment. I just wanted it to feel a little bit more crisp, kind of like it would be if it was a little newer. So walking around the exterior of the car, I had the wheels refinished in this, instead of a hyper silver that it kind of comes with, it's more of a darker gray. It's between a silver and a gunmetal gray, I would say. You can see the Brembo brakes are in there. This has new rotors and pads as well. So if we look at all the, I'll point out the flaws in the car. Obviously you see things, a little bit of age, a little wet, sun damage on a few plastic bits. I added the mud flaps to the front and the back. Makes a big difference in the poor weather. Doesn't swing up any of the dirty water. This is a Ditto Ridge Grappler tire in a 275, 55, 220 setup, just in case anybody is curious. So these cars are very, very well known for peeling clear coat. And with that, it looks horrible, generally. So I don't see any of that on most of the car. There's a couple of spots I'll point out that do have that. But overall, as you can see, there's a little bit of a nick right here. The clear coat is fine. But you can see the primer on these cars is orange, which makes it look the way that it does in the sun. It has this pop and this multi-dimensional color. Sometimes it looks a lot more, dark orange. Sometimes it looks a lot lighter, but overall it's very nice. So you can just look at the door panels. This is the only issue, the biggest visible issue. This quarter has some peeling clear coat. I have done what I can to stop it, which pretty much was gently wet sanding the edges to prevent it from happening further. And it's worked. It's been like this for quite some time. The previous owner must have had a bumper sticker at some point. When it peeled off, it took the clear coat with it. That's been like that since. Added the O to the Range Rover logo, making the orange Rover for the color. That can simply be peeled off. All it was, it's an original, it's an OEM lettering piece that I just put out there and did what I could to make it look as factory as possible at the center of it. being the way that it is, this has the dual exhaust. This does come with a spare tire. The spare tire has never been used. There's just the rubber nipples on it from its date. No issues with this side. None of these fenders. It looks fantastic. Little light scratch going across the top. Headlights are in great condition. So the flaws of this cosmetically are the fact that the clear coat is missing from these pillars right here. The roof is perfect. When I got the car, this was peeling. I had known about it. What I ended up just doing was taking it to a car wash and pressure washing the rest of it off just to make it look a little bit more consistent. And truthfully, from a distance, you can't tell a difference. It looked worse with the clear coat peeling because you could then at least see a problem. But now, you really can't tell a difference. You can just see it's a little bit more matte in color. But the new Range Rovers are black. I thought about wrapping it a black. I didn't like the look of it wrapped black on this model on the L320. I left it as it was. So let's get into the trunk area. So when I got the trunk, this button didn't work. This button is what you use to make the hatch work. Oh no, I'm sorry. This button is for the whole trunk unit, right? So you open this, boom, it comes up. So you might think the trunk doesn't open. Well, no. What I did, this under here is for your hatch. Top half will open up, put your groceries in. I needed more access to the full hatch. So what I ended up doing was simply rerouting the buttons from here to this right here. So when you press the old latch button, it's now your trunk release. So we get into the trunk. Overall, very clean, very nice, well taken care of car. You have your 12 fold back here. You have your 6-disc CD changer in there. And your toolkit. I'm including the hitch. I purchased this separately with a lock. This is included in the car. It fits in there. I just felt it fit better going with the car. You have your jack. I always keep extra oil in there. A little toolkit. Little recovery strap, and then some of the factory stuff that it came with when it was new, just showing you how to jack your car up and put it in the mode it needs to be in, etc. That all comes with the car. Factory screwdriver, the whole kit. It's a little more complete than it would have been from the factory. What I like about these a lot is this is plywood. This is a dyed plywood from the factory. And nowadays it's mostly plastic or it's thinner plywood, but this is, I'm a fan of that. Both seats lay down. All this is storage space. I've used it before. Very useful, very practical car. We'll get into the back. Very clean back here. You see the weather techs are included in this. The center armrest does pull down, so you can use that to sit, rest, relax, whatever you'd like to do. As you sit back here, you have your rear entertainment, which does work, in fact. I will turn those on and show them a little bit later off. Back here, I have a Bluetooth adapter set up with a phone charger running to the front. But you have heated seats for the rear passengers. You have old school inputs, RCA cabling, cigarette lighter, aux input, which is how the Bluetooth is working. Not a lot of crazy stuff back here. On each side of the back doors, you have your little controls for the monitor, little media setup. Plug your headphones in here, forward, backward, plus, minus. This is your basically built-in remote. This did not come with the wireless remote. They're very expensive for what they are, for how little they'll get used. I'll leave that up to the next buyer to figure out if he wants that for himself. These come with Hardware Card and Logic 7 sound system. Works amazingly. I have a 2003 5 Series that I did an audio upgrade with Bath Sound. If anybody knows and familiar with those, it's an upgrade for the factory speakers, utilizing all the factory components, amplifier, etc. And even after that kind of upgrade, doesn't make a difference. Compared to this is this is what you want for all today's music. So you have upper glove box, ignore my junk, little tray up here for your items. Glove box down here, all the manuals included. I kept all the ones that came with the car, and I also purchased some additional ones. I did have to purchase, this is called IID tool by Gap Diagnostics, and what this does, it allows you to diagnose the car, work on the car yourself if you choose to do that, configure the car's factory settings to how you like them, adjust the suspension up and down however you'd like them. So this is an additional way to adjust the suspension height without using the Johnson rods that this has. But the benefit to having the actual physical rods that manipulate the computer is it gives you a bit more range of use. Let's go around the driver's side, press all the buttons. Same deal in here. You have your WeatherTechs, nice Land Rover badging, a little metal cladding, a little bit of a tear in this seat. I did end up putting a little leather patch on this. This has held up very well, and I have been on the hunt for a factory seat bottom. The issue is that the seat bottoms for these years with the little perforations were a lot less produced than the later years where it was a solid leather. So I believe this has something to do with the fact that it is a launch edition car. I am not 100% on that, but I'm pretty certain based on my findings. I can only find a couple of other ones. They did have the same thing, so this seems to be a similar issue across the board. Oh, let's hop in. Let me move my seat back here. Excuse the camera if you could, I'm kind of in the sun. So you have a little refrigerator in here. Most people know or don't know that this comes with a cooler, and it did work for me when I first got the car, and it did keep averages cool. But the one time that I did want to actually use it, when I went off-roading with this thing, it did not work. It just clicks like it wants to start. So might be a bit of a fuse issue. It's not a big enough item for me to address, needing to worry about it. You have, I ended up, when I purchased this car, I replaced the gear shifter with a factory one because the leather was just so oily and disgusting looking. So this is brand new. Same with the steering wheel. I ended up replacing the steering wheel with one that was refurbished because the one that it came with was pretty much a gloss, shiny wax wheel, and I didn't want to do that. So anyway, miles on the car here. Let's look at the odometer. 153,633. And yes, it is pretty freaking cold where I'm at. So we do have a check engine light on for this car. It does pull a lean code. It's pulled that since I purchased the car. I've driven it. I've put a couple thousand miles on it with no issue. Car's actually running right now. Very, very smooth. I have no issues with the car. Very powerful. Supercharged engine. The biggest thing for me is I love to hear the supercharged engine noise because it has that whine to it. So I'll literally turn off the air conditioner, any music I have, I'll roll up all the windows, and I will literally put it in sport mode, which makes a big difference in this car, and it will just whine. Fortunately, I have not gotten any tickets yet in this car, but that is short-lived. This has the little garage door openers on off for your, I believe it's a dimming for the tail lights, or I'm sorry, dimming for the mirror for lights coming from your rear. The car itself is British. This is a little, let's see, here, I'll show you that. The car has its own voice, so in case anyone was curious what these cars sound like. And by the way, this is just something that I added on. It's just a charger for most iPhones. It's just the wireless magnetic ones. Perfect positioning for me. I didn't want to spend the money to try to figure out how to put CarPlay in this thing. Personally, I don't like the way it looks because this down here has to usually get replaced itself with the head unit, which means you have an awkwardly located head unit, but you also have two screens, which I personally am not a fan of in these cars. This I've never really used, other than the fact that it can be used to program your favorites on Sirius XM radio or even FM AM. So that's what I've used them for. So we'll go ahead and do this here. Let's go to the navigation. Let's just press some navigational units. Again, I have used this one time, and it wasn't for necessity. It was out of pure curiosity. So let's just see here. I think that's your home button. Stored locations. Let's go home. And that's not home position. Okay. Let's see here. Previous destinations. So as you can see, this is not too intuitive. It's not the best thing in the world. If I had absolutely nothing, would I rely on it? Absolutely. So you can put a picture in picture. You can have a zoom in. I don't understand the purpose to a lot of this stuff. Points of interest. Here we go. Let's go to a golf course. Alright, so we're not going to mess with it. Anyway, it has a British sounding accent for the navigational unit. It's pretty funny. I always say it's the personality of the car. That's what the car would sound like if it were to actually speak. Personally, I'm a believer in the fact that we're caretakers of these vehicles. I think every vehicle, it's your responsibility to curate it for the next person. So when this car goes on to the next owner, it'll be up to them to take care of it. Whatever they decide to do is whatever is going to happen with the car. Going through this screen, in case anybody's curious, you have your DVD, you have the options for your rear entertainment. This is how you can turn these on and off. So if I do left, I turn them on right. You should see that's playing Godfather 3. That's a CD that came with the car, DVD, and it does come with the car for the next owner. You can actually select the audio, the video, you can play with these settings. Good if you have kids, still very functional. Decently intuitive for the year. You have your navigational screen, which we went over. You have some settings, which don't really do a lot of stuff. Lets you change the language, screen settings, etc. 4x4. I use this. I've gone off-road a few times. Out by us here in Michigan, we have a place in, it's called Holly Oaks Off-Road Vehicle Park. It's a municipal park. And it's a previous like mine for something that they, I don't know specifically what it was used for, but I had a great time in this car. This thing has been dead reliable for me. It has never left me stranded. The previous owner never had any solid records with him. He did mention the alternator was replaced. He also told me a story that the alternator was replaced and his mechanic ended up dying and the family ended up just giving him the car, so he never had to pay for the replacement. Every time I've done any diagnostics on this car, the alternator has seemed to be great. The battery's from just the late last year, so it's a fresh battery. The tires are overall good. It's going to get another probably 15,000 miles for the next owner. I, under my tenure, have put some work into replacing the fluids in the transfer case, the differentials, both of them. There's a center and a front differential. This year specifically does not have a rear differential. It wasn't an option until 2007, where I think it might have been standard, but I know for a fact it wasn't available in 2006. Needless to say, this thing has performed flawlessly. Everyone that I've gone out there with has had Jeeps, etc. People seem to think that this car is worth way more than its cost. They seem to think it's way newer than what it actually is. It's 2006. So this screen will show you your steering position when you turn the wheel, which is what I'm doing now. Shows you your height when you have, you know, different levels. So when you're in a crevice or you're going over some rocks, this will manipulate. What's cool is too, this will, if you modify your little control modes, these do seem to work pretty well. Generally, when I go off-roading in any capacity, I leave it in the setting that it is unless I get into something where I think this will do something for me. I'm in the frame of mind of, unless you're going rock crawling, which is this setting here, which requires you to put it in a low gear in the transfer case, that these other ones are going to pretty much do what the automatic version does, except you feel like you're twisting it. So I think that's a bit of a placebo, that being the exception. But even with this one, you would simply put it in low, and that would be all you would need to do. You can raise the suspension high, you can raise the suspension low. Let me raise the suspension high on this, and I'll get out and end this video, and you can see how high this will go with the Johnson rods and the lift from the memory. Overall, I will say that I will miss this car. I am selling this car because I simply have too many vehicles and not enough time. I have a baby girl, and she takes up most of my time. So anytime that I need to work on any of my cars, I really don't have the availability, and it gets to the point of it's cumbersome. These cars need to be driven. Again, I've had no issues with these, but I don't like to let my cars sit. It's inevitable that you will have problems from them sitting. So let's get outside. Let's look at this car one more time. Like I said, paint's in great shape. I'm going to be very sad to see her go. Most of the reason for this video is really for me and my memory. Benefit is going to be to whoever watches this that's a prospective buyer, or if this car is already sold, this will live on the internet for the ages to come. And if you've ever been curious about what one of these looks like, specifically I say Vesuvius orange, this will tell you. One of the last things that I didn't mention is that the grill, I ended up replacing. This is not the original grill that came with the car. This is a grill that came out on a later version of this body style, and it was from what was called the HST trim, which was more based on a concept. So this was actually a concept color before this car came out, which is why it was part of the launch edition. This grill looks more like the concept. This grill did not come with the car when it was new. It came on a car that was 3-4 years older. I think it was a 2010 HST. Had a different bumper, front and back, etc. But it was never offered in Vesuvius orange, so you really never got the complete package. This is my way of completing the package. As you can see the height on this thing. That's some serious travel for this car. I'll go under the car a little bit. This does have two rocker panels all the way under. A lot of surface rust, but nothing major for this car. Like I said, I had taken this car off-road. It has done wonderfully. I don't like to wreck things or make my life a little more difficult by breaking things. This is held its own. Like I said, I'm gonna very much miss this car. Personally, for me, I think this will be a car that I will own again in the future. Maybe even this one if I track it down after I sell it. Give it another 5 or 6 years, we'll see. But they don't make them like this anymore. They don't make them like this anymore at all. So this is what you want. If you want a car that is unique, that's nostalgic to your memories growing up, if you remember this car, you want to go off-road reliably when you go out on occasion, because it's simply not something you do all the time. You want a car that you can daily drive, that people look at. You can go on any terrain. It sounds good, it feels good, it drives good, it has all the senses catered to. This is what you want. So just keep an eye on this. I will put the listing for any listing links that I have when this does go live. It will be attached to this. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to put something in the comments. I'll do my best to answer it. I've done my best to immerse myself in this car for the time that I've owned it, learn everything about it, its history, its aura, everything that I can find to appreciate, and that's where we are. So, in case anyone's curious, also the license plate, I like to do vanity plates, and considering this is the orange Rover, it is a pulp-free version. It's a big juice box, big orange juice box that has no pulp. All right, thanks everyone for watching this video. Sorry if it was a little bit long. Like I said, I tried to show everything that I could show. Skip through what you want to skip through. And yeah, on to the next car. Thanks everyone.